you know, along those same lines, they actually had to tell their children the truth about us from day one, so that if we saw anything, you know, if we said anything, they would know what to say to steer us in the opposite direction of who we really are.
Oh yeah, they had to understand what the deal was, definitely.
Yep.
They had to.
They did. Yep.
So they had to
and then when they're putting all of their stuff in place, they had to treat us a certain way as if things didn't really matter, and all of that. It was all about us the whole time. It was all about us the whole time. Yep. So, and lock the conference so we can get started. Let's see. Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Today is May the 30th, 1442 on the ancient moon calendar and 1441 on the ancient sun calendar, and 2021 on the Greco-Roman calendar. So, as we know, we may or may not know this, but we're going to continue to point out that as we continue, the more of us getting into our rightful place, into our sovereign status, and being who we really are, that the subjects on the land, we've raised them from the dead, and we're going to continue doing that. They're doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. Some people think that those hybrids, including the ones that come in here, you think they're not lawless. They know what this is. The ones that come in here, they're just fulfilling the Jesuit oath when they come in here and say all those things. That's part of the Jesuit oath. If you know the Jesuit oath, you won't even be mad at them. They're just doing what they, you know, on whatever level of understanding they have, they're just doing what they're supposed to do. You know, but I'll say this, where the banking piece is concerned, because that's what we're talking about today, the banking piece and the real estate piece, even where those things are concerned, the hybrids are doing exactly as they are supposed to be doing. As they see us make moves, they make moves to get in their rightful place and make sure that everything is ready for us, so that as we continue standing, that the estate is in its rightful hands. So I'll prove that with a couple of things that you can do your research on, and again, know that everything that we're doing is for the heirs that are to come. It's for us and for the heirs that are to come. So just a few things. We know that in 2018 was when we leave the United States Corporation Company. Our government, which is all of us, placed a sovereign, original, indigenous, national, divine, Moorish American, ancient Al-Moroccan lien on the United States Corporation Company as we were supposed to, because that is a dead entity. And then in 2019, we followed that up with putting the gold standard in place. And
glad you
locked
proclaimed
what was already in place, you know. We proclaimed what was already in place. And so while we were doing that and we were going along, continuing to do the work, more continuing to wake up and uplift themselves and save themselves and go through the testing and all of that, the hybrids were doing a few things. One of the things that they did in 2019, in order to, again, get things ready for us, which we didn't know that that's what they were doing, but they were, is all of the bank, the ones that were doing business as CEOs came together, all of them, and you know, they did that quite often once we started putting the affidavits on the public record. All of them came together, and in 2019, they all signed what they call a statement of purpose of a corporation. Statement of purpose of a corporation. And in that statement of purpose, because they had what they call a business roundtable. Now, we know whenever someone starts talking about roundtables, you're now talking Masonic order, you're talking high sciences, which is our stuff. That all has to do with us. All of the belligerent, yes, they were getting in subject status because they were lean by then. Getting in subject status, they signed this statement of purpose of a corporation so that everything would be flipped back on its in its rightful place. Now, what the purpose, the statement said, is that it subordinated the shareholders back underneath the stakeholders. Now, in its proper term and in its natural format, we are the stakeholders. We hold the stake. You know, you've heard the vampire stories where someone puts a stake through the heart of the vampire and it dies. Okay, we're the stakeholders. We've always been the stakeholders of every resource on this land. We just did not know that that's what we were. Now we do. And they've been the shareholders, and in subject status, they were shareholder, and it's just another word for a custodian. Just another word for a custodian. That's why shares can be up and down and all this, and they could take the shares and they can sell them and do insider trade. That's what they were doing with corporate shares. But when everything gets back into its rightful place like it is now, that statement said that the stakeholders are now above, in terms of status, the shareholders. What does that mean? That means that the stakeholders are now the priority of all companies and all resources. All custodians who were doing business with corporations in black, ink in capital letters, are now doing it in blue and not in all capital letters. So they know, they have said, okay, we all have to be under the stakeholders. We got to get back under the Moors, because everything that we've been doing was based on their credit, and they know it now. Okay, the Moors know it, so we gotta get back in place, because we have to say it publicly that we're back in place. So when you do the etymology on the word stake, S-T-A-K-E, do the etymology on that word so that you will know, and then look back at what they've been telling us through their vampire movies and all of that. Because our teachers have been telling us that they're vampires, energy vampires, and, you know, putting the straw in our neck, you know, right here at the jugular, where everything is pumping through. And they've just been eating and eating and eating off the air. Well, no more. That's over. And now they're saying openly that that's over. So then that was in 2019 that they did that. And then also in 2019, they made a whole lot of moves in our favor. They also, in 2019, did something that they call the Accountable Capitalism Act. Now, remember, we've been talking about capitalism, and we know that capitalism has been that's been the crux of the matter for the most part, where all the violations, we're thinking we're names in all capital letters and all of that in black ink. We're not any of that. That's why they kept calling us black people, because we accepted the black ink and the capital letters. So they signed something called the Accountable Capitalism Act, and now we're gonna rebut everything they do. We're gonna rebut it and put our own commands in place. But in their Accountable Capitalism Act, it was saying something about requiring that workers comprise at least 40% of the board of directors of every company. Because they already know that, you know, and that brings up another point that I'd like for us to talk about briefly before we get into the real estate piece. In fact, let me just sure. So we know that we're 100% directing everything that has to do with all of our resources on this land. 100%. We tell them, we give the command, and the subjects do as commanded when our commands are lawful and when our commands are peaceful. So this Accountable Capitalism Act is putting them back in the subordinate status to the heirs. In the past, we used to hear companies talking about the employees own the company, the employees own the company. That's a hypothecation for we're the heirs to all of the resources and everything has to do with everything. It's all ours, okay? And they're subjects. And whenever we're going into doing these companies like the Al-Moroccan American Exchange, the companies that are that we have stated publicly, which that list is growing and growing and growing exponentially. It actually already includes every company out there because of the companies that we have under the New York Stock Exchange and the Federal Reserve and a couple of other companies that are overarching companies. So in the Accountable Capitalism Act, they also put something in there that says that all companies must obtain a federal charter to operate. A federal charter. Well, first of all, who's the government? We are. We are, and we spell federal differently from the way they spell it because it means we're the real federal government and not their definition of federal, because there's a hypothecated definition of federal that tries to put us in a place that we're not. So we gave them a command last year, year before last, from the very beginning, really. When we did the lien in 2018, we told them that the treaty and the Constitution shall be your charter. And we also abolished all corporate charters. That's not that. That's not the Constitution. So they said what we said. And they said, okay, we're gonna have to put this in writing because the Moors are saying that the Constitution, that we have to have a federal charter, and that they're going to give, and we know that they've already given us a federal charter. The federal charter is the Constitution. Period. So they're just not agreeing, but following commands, because we don't have an agreement with them. We give them commands, and they do as commanded. And they've done that. So today we state publicly on the public record, the Constitution shall be your charter for all subjects and all businesses, all of that. The Constitution for the United States, and we're speaking in ancient English, so they know exactly what we mean. The Constitution for the United States, 1789, 1791, it is natural and organic and written by us, the sovereign heirs, and our ancestors. We are our ancestors' return. So they're getting in alignment now. Another thing, with regard to the banks, yes, in the Constitution for the United States, in red and all lowercase letters, absolutely. And another thing, they have, this is just a little tidbit, a little factoid. So who do who are they proposing is the head of the now defunct and in full liquidation corporation company? Who are they saying is supposed to be the head of that? They're saying they were saying it's Joe Biden. But we know better than that. We know better than that. It's not. The one that is overseeing them getting all the way out of the way has to be a Moorish American by bloodline and birthright. It has to be because of the times that we're in and because that's what we said. So who is it? I can prove it. It's Maxine Waters. See, Kamala Harris, some would think that it's her. She is what Unum Sanctum calls the intermediary. She and Barack both. They're intermediaries. Intermediaries have Moorish in them, but the mother is not a Moor. And according to Unum Sanctum, there must be an intermediary when things are going either from the lower self to the high or the high to the low. There has to be something in between, an intermediary. And the intermediary is always going to be a mix of the high and the low. So it is actually Maxine Waters. She held court whenever they call those quote-unquote banks before a committee to testify. They use the word testify because that's a court action too. And those ones that were doing business as CEOs had gotten to the point where they were pretty much telling the corporation, we don't owe you nothing and we're not going to do what you say. We're going to do what we want to do until the Moors stand up and tell us otherwise, because we're not under you anymore and we're not going to pay you anything. And that's where a lot of the infighting started. Is everyone was saying, well, you know, you're not the Moors, so we don't have to do what you say because you're bankrupt. The Moors bankrupted you. And you've been bankrupt from day one, really. So when the intermediary, and she's not really an intermediary, but she's operating in that venue, and it's not a corporate venue. When she called those banks, and she didn't call them, she told them to come, and they came because when I say belligerent, when they're operating in court status, of course they are belligerent because they're angry because they don't have a real head. But when she called them to her court, she had a banner of Amity and Commerce behind her with no yellow fringes on it on one side, and on the other side she had a flag of California, the Republic, in honor of Empress Khalifa, who is our ancient ancestor. Okay. And she clearly had Republic on the flag showing that. And then all of those bank, quote unquote, CEOs raised their right hand and took an oath, like you do in any court action. You know, they would take an oath in the court action. We don't take them. We just affirm who we are because it's our court. So the justice never takes an oath or anything like that. We just state that we are the sovereign justice, etc. So that part is taken care of for the Moors. But all of the banks, just about everyone that we called into court, into our Moorish American Consular Court, was there in her court. And remember, when they say what we say, what we've commanded, there's no more conflict on the land, and then everything gets in alignment. And we're seeing left and right. And that's why court actions by us, all of us, are so important. Because you all are going to be saying things and giving commands in your court actions, and then you're going to turn around and see those subjects in the quote unquote cities and things like that. You're going to see them put a press conference out or some article in the paper, and they're going to be saying essentially almost verbatim the same thing that you said. That, oh, we have to have an act, or we're putting a law or putting a code or statute in place that says blah, blah, blah. And when you look at it, it's going to be exactly what you commanded. That, oh, we can't bother these people, and, you know, all stops are going to have to be this way or that way, you know, or policy enforcers can't do this and can't do that. That's what you're seeing, because they have to do as you and all of us command. But we have to do it by court action. We have to, because that's how they do everything. When they call themselves legislating and Congress and all of that, those are court actions, and every last one of them has a quote unquote legal degree. Because I can't even call it a law degree, because it's not that. So that's why the court actions are so important, and they're doing exactly what we told them to do. The court action that Maxine Waters did was 5 hours and something, almost 6 hours of questioning, and she was asking the questions and getting the responses from them. And they had to tell the truth, so you could see them wiggling in the things that they were saying. And I'll put the link to that. Let me make sure that I'm sharing my screen properly as well. Okay. Let me put the link to that video in the chat so that you can see it. This one. For those who want to look at a 5-hour plus video of just one moment. Some type of commercial. Let me go to my history. Let me pull that up for you so that you can look at it, because it's important that we, here it is. Just one moment. So that you all can see. Because the things that I just told you about their banking and all of that, I found out by watching this video. And I'm not done with the video. I'm about probably two hours in. But it's important because this video, and I'll put here's the link in the chat. That video, among many others, is where we see that they're doing exactly what we have commanded them to do. Okay. But again, most people won't take the time to watch that kind of thing. They said quite a few things in that video that are in complete alignment with what we told them to do. And they're also getting ready to turn everything over, and it's already turned over. It's just a matter of us proceeding when we're ready to proceed further. And this is proceeding right now. What we're doing right now is proceeding. So I want to say one other thing, and then I'm going to turn it over to Empress today. With regard to the land and the video that we did recently showing where all of the land patents are actually in a all-black capitalized name, and that we just need to find our family name, quote unquote, and put it in red in all lowercase letters on government letterhead, etc., and then the land patent is then what it should be. So with regards to land and anything like that, we have to be sure that as we start claiming those resources, that we claim them to build our government and not just to make ourselves comfortable. Us and our, our little three. Me, my three, and no more. Me, my four, and no more. We have to make sure that before we do any of that, that our energies, that we clear them so that we know that every piece of land, every building, every structure must have our flag flying, and any monuments, Moorish monuments, we need to have them put on the land. So that everywhere that you look, you see Moorish monuments, Moorish flags, everywhere. That is how it looks in other lands such as Russia and places like that, Russia territory. Russia territory has Moorish statues and monuments and all of that everywhere. There's no place you can look that you will not see the Moors at Russia territory. Same thing with, yes, there are many places. Same thing with places like Turkmenistan, Iraq, Iran, Turkey, everywhere. If Moorish monuments or anything that has to do with us is all over the place, wherever you look. Our architecture, everything. Our statues, anything that has to do with it is everywhere. So we have to do the same thing here. So let's make it clear that each piece of land or structure that we get, our first priority is going to be to dedicate that land back to the ancestors by putting a monument or a flag or something on it that says this is sovereign, holy Moorish land, Al-Moroccan ancient land. So I wanted to be sure that, and then our job too is also we're taking the 7 mountains. The 7 mountains are the 7 mountains of empire are the following: art, government, media, entertainment, commerce, erudition, and religion, so to speak, but not really religion. For us, it's law. And there are variations of those 7 mountains, but everything that we do we must bring our flag flying to everything. We must bring our monuments to everything. We're going to overrun the culture. We're here to change the culture of this whole land back to what it should be. So that means that our land is going to be for schools, it's going to be for arts, and those who love rapping and, music, Bach, Beethoven, whatever kind of music, opera, whatever, gospel music, it doesn't even matter. That is making America great again, and that's the reset. That's what we're here to do. And the land, our ancestors they're not trying to give it to anybody who's wanting to set up a little fiefdom for themselves that they put up walls, and they're not giving that to the empire in terms of, and giving back to the empire just means put a monument up. Start teaching, giving, put out. Make sure that what you're getting is going back out in one way or another. All hands on deck. Sharing the information, helping people nationalize, everything. Everything that we do, it has to have us all over it, from start to finish, so that we never forget where we came from and who we are. we couldn't see who we were because we didn't know we didn't see ourselves anywhere. All we saw was hybrid, so we thought, with our limited vision in our sleep. That's like trying to look with your eyes closed. So as we move forward in these processes, we are to keep in mind that this is not about any one of us, that this is about all of us. And it's about into perpetuity, the generations to come, that everything that we do. And that's why the prophet talked about the turbans and fezzes being seen everywhere. We need to be looking like us. And whatever that means, because see, turbans and fezzes is just one. That's just one aspect of how we present. There are so many other ways that we present that don't look like a black business suit, you know, or that kind of thing. The things that we got used to wearing, but we have to make that stuff. See, a lot of us don't even have access to it because we haven't made it yet. We're being called to put all hands on deck, means that our hands need to be doing things that might be outside of our comfort zone, but we have to do it still. We have to do it still, and we have to find a way to do it. Okay? So with that being said, that story, whenever you hear the hybrids talking about the story of the Valley of Dry Bones, just know that that was our story at one point. And now we're coming together, and the organs are starting to work, and the blood is flowing, and, you know, we're a standing army. So whenever you have some time, read the story of the Valley of Dry Bones and what happened to those bones when they finally stood all the way up, because that's our story. That's just one of many. That is our story. Empress Shade, are you here? I'm not sure if she...
yeah, how you doing? I'm great. Thank you very much, you bitch.
I'm sorry? Empress Shade, we're actually...
Yes, ma'am.
Hold on one second. Okay, you're there.
Yep, can you hear me well?
Yes, we can hear you. Empress, I'm going to give you the presenter function so that you can...
Okay.
Okay. That's correct, Justice Gill, in the chat. There are no stories that are not our stories. None whatsoever. Okay. And while I'm passing her the presenter function, we are going to be having a vote. So and actually we can, you know, we can do the voting process by email on who's going to be on those 3 denominations for the Moorish Sovereign Dalarian. We've gotten some appellations already. I believe we got C.M. Bay as one of the appellations. We also got, let's see who else. We also got Prince Uriel Bay. And then there were a couple of others that I can't think of right at the moment to go on the Dalarium. But let's be thinking about that, and whoever gets the most votes coming in, and then whichever denomination we want them on. So if you want to place your vote for those who are going to go on the Dillarium, the 3 Dillariums that we talked about that don't have faces on them. Please send that to thegovernment@gmail.com. Yes, and we can also honor ancestors who are not on the scene, but that we know about. Okay, so we want to keep that in mind, and you can again send your nominations to thegovernment@gmail.com. It is government with an E on the end. Okay, and I'm trying to get to the share piece. Oh, there it is. Did it come over, Empress, today?
Okay, let me see. Hold on one second. I don't see anything yet. Not yet. I don't see it yet.
Okay, just let me know when it comes.
Okay.
Now, Empress today is going to be discussing the real estate piece. And I'll say this about the real estate piece. Empress today, I'm gonna mute you for just one moment because there's a little bit of feedback, and then I'm gonna mute myself when you come on so that we don't get that feedback. But let me say about Empress today and I were talking earlier today about the real estate piece for the heirs. There have been some, like when I first woke up, I'll just speak about me because that's my most it's safer that way to just talk about what I was seeing. When I first woke up, I was just thinking, okay, all we have to do is say who we are and do a quick affidavit, and everything should be ours. Everything should be ours. And that's kind of true, but our ancestors want us to be competent. And also, we have to remember that the hybrid will not, the foreign colonizers will not always be here. In fact, they're out of here already, really. So the things that we're putting in place is actually for us to be dealing with one another on the land peacefully. The hybrids put processes in place that, you know, we can look at and then clean it up and then use it. But we can't use it in their system because that's not a real system. That's the fake one. We're the real system. The Moors are the real system. So that's why we're doing these processes that we're doing. Our ancestors want us to put processes in place that keep the peace with regard to the vast estate so that we can move freely, create freely, be unified, and all of that. I was hesitant at one point to even delve into, you know, saying, okay, we have to do it this way, and if we do it this way, then this will be the result. Because we know you can't tell sovereigns what to do. You can only put the law in place. So, and then the sovereign, just like in our fleet, the sovereign, it's only by sovereign consent and sovereign agreement that things get done. And so we're wanting to, we are putting these processes in place so that we agree also, and so that everything is done in an orderly manner. And there's plenty, there's so much property to go around that we never have to argue. And our ancestors didn't have to argue about any of that because they had the law in place. And that's why we want to put these processes in place. We looked at what the hybrids did and said, okay, let's clean that up and make it sovereign, take it out of that jurisdiction and put it into the sovereign, ancient, in original indigenous jurisdiction, and then put it forth as this is how we're going to move and proceed into the possession of our vast estate. Our ancestors did it with the Constitution and everything. They said, look, everything must be done decently and in order. And we're going to follow their example and do it as well. Even Prophet Noble Judicialle, he put some things in, some rules in place, with the Moorish Holy Temple of Science and the old Canaanite temple, where it's like, okay, let's do things this way. Let's do it this way. And, and as long as those things are put in place and we all agree together that, okay, this is how we're going to do things, then no one can say that we can't do it. They can't kick doors in and pull folks over and throw them in jail and all of that kind of stuff. All of that stuff is, no. We have order, and we're going to continue to prove that we have order. Now, the things that we put in place now, they are going to change over time because as the hybrid goes back to Europe, and when I say the hybrid going back to Europe, I mean the colonizers. As the colonizing hybrid goes back to Europe, it'll be us here. And we want to put things in place so that when our great-grand heirs come, the great-grand heirs are not going to know anything about hybrids except what they read in the book, or colonizers rather, except what they read in the book, a history book that we write, because we're writing it now. So they're going to know about colonization and stuff like that, but it won't be because a foreign colonizer pulled them over and threw them in a jail cell. It'll be because we said, okay, in our erudition temple, this is what happened, and this is what we did to get beyond it. Okay? And that's why we put everything on the public record like we've been doing. Some didn't want us to put the videos out there. They were saying, that stuff shouldn't be on the public record. Yeah, it should be. It should be out there for everybody to see. And that's what we're going to do, keep it out there. So all the Moors can see. They're the heirs, and this is how we're proceeding. So, Empress Shade, are you able to do the presentment piece? I think I see here on the screen. Moors, can you see what's on the screen?
I was just going to ask that because I can't see what you guys can see, but I do have, okay, they're saying yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay. I'm hoping that it will, let me make sure that the screen is unlocked. There it is. Okay. I yield the floor to Empress today, who has just done a marvelous job, Empress. Hi, all praise to Empress today for this work. I love it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. No problem. And I want to reiterate on what you just stated, because I was going to do that anyway. Exactly what you just said, and I love that you did it. That's why I know that we're thinking alike right now, because you're right. I know a lot of the Moors did not want to do this process on how we're doing it now. But, yes, we have to think about having a structure in place for us to continue to do the business, because we've been so used to, throughout all this time, just solely focusing on the corporation and how to get out of their system. And now it's like, okay, you're out of their system. We're out of their system. Now what about our system? We don't want anything to come at a standstill to where we can't function with each other because we don't have any structure or mechanisms in place for us to continue on, to do the things that we need to do, to do our transactions. So this is where all this kicks in, and it has to be done now. It has to be done now. We need to do it right now because they're already moving out the way. Empress Light showed me that the video that she just sent to you guys in the chat, and I showed her a couple of videos, and they're definitely in agreement with everything that we're saying, okay? They're already moving out the way, so we must get our, we must govern, I guess. I'll just say that we must govern and get our structure in place to be able to do this with each other. So that was the first thing. And before I move to the presentation, you mentioned something 2 seconds ago about capitalism, and it made me bring this up just so I can show the heirs right quick before we get in today. This was a note.
Okay, they're saying it's really small, Empress.
Is it?
Can you make it a little bit bigger?
I sure can. Tell me if it's big enough. Whoa, might be too big. Is it big enough?
And then maybe your screen, can you hit the square up in the corner so that your screen can be bigger?
Oh, shoot, it looks like it's about as big as it's going to get. Okay. Is it too small now? Hold on.
Is that helping at all more? Can you see it?
Can anybody see this? I don't see anyone.
They're saying it's...
We can't see it all. We can't see it all. The right, left is not appearing.
You know what?
Just center it a little bit, Empress.
No, that's fine. I just want you to see the highlighted. As long as you're able to see the highlighted part, because the rest of this is just all capital nonsense dealing with the corporation. But I just want to hit this 1111. If you guys can see that particular portion that's highlighted, and you notice that it says capitalized terms used not otherwise defined herein shall have the meaning ascribed to such terms in the loan documents. This was a note for that was drafted by one of these alleged banks for one of our companies that we had. I just found it funny that they use the word capitalized terms, letting you know that there's a difference. That there's a difference
in the meaning.
Yes, they're telling me this. This is right in the note. And I found that, you know, after learning the stuff that we learned, every time, like I told you, Empress, that I can show like a little piece more of evidence of exactly what we're doing, is we need to be doing what we're doing, I'll show it. And this right here, as soon as, you know, we were learning what we were learning about capitalism, and they made sure they put it. I've never seen this before. I don't know if anyone else has. I know I haven't. I just thought I would share that briefly with you guys before we move on to the presentation. Okay, so let me move on to the presentation. Okay, now I'm not going to go through. I'm just going to recap a little bit of what we discussed before, because we have a new affidavit that we came up with. Me and Empress Light went over it a little bit more today to try to get a good draft. Like we said, it's going to get better and better as we go, but this is the moorishe American Divine Sovereign Real Estate Transaction. We discussed before about the a Mexican land bank with all its different ministries that's going to be a part that's going to pretty much take care of every particular portion of the transaction to get you all the way through to the closing. Okay, and then we also talking about it's not a credit approval because we're not approving the heirs, but we'll just say it's an authentication. But this is what I had before: authentication. I'll just put it like that. Yes.
Can you change the word credit to creditor?
Oh yeah. Okay, I'll do that. This is what I had before. So. Yeah,
and the reason we're saying sovereign creditor authentication process is because we're looking at the document. This is the document that we're looking at. We know that the heirs are the heirs, so that's not a question. But we're looking at the document to ensure that the documents reflect that the heir is the creditor.
Right. And so.
And they're saying that the presentation is not fitting the screen. Can you hit that square button? Yeah, that up in the corner so that it can fit the screen.
I wonder why is it not fitting the screen? Because when I do this, it fits my screen. Is it better when it's like this for you guys? Because I just hit.
If you hit that square.
I hit the square in the upper right corner. It's not showing anything different when I hit the square right now?
It's bigger.
It is.
Yeah, I can see it now.
Here.
I can see everything.
All right, I'm blowing it up a little bit more. Is that better, everybody?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Fine.
Okay. Now, could you finish what you were saying? I don't know if you were done saying about the, as far as we're not,
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I just want to make it clear that we're not questioning the heirs, but we are making sure that the documents, because their ID is going, and their name change and all of that is going to be proper. So as long as we're not questioning the heirs, we're doing the authentication on the document stating that these are proper sovereign creditor documents.
Right. That's right.
I'm muting now, Edward.
Okay. Let me see here. So yeah, we're going to discuss this before about the documents. There's no need to go over it again about the affidavits. And then we discussed this. Of course, this is how.
Would you just take the time to read through those ones?
Oh, you want me to? Okay. Well, yeah. We previously discussed about the corporate documents that was needed in order to get approved for one of their loans, which was an ID, your social security number, the credit report, application, 3 months bank statements, 2 months check stubs, tax returns, preferably 2 years, and then they would do a VOE, which was a verification of employment, and a VOF, which is verification of funds through your bank to make sure that you had the money needed to close the transaction, okay? Whatever proof of funds that they would need from you. And for us, just like Empress Light explained, we're not doing that. We're, the heirs are the heirs. We just want to make sure that you have all of the affidavits in place to complete the transaction. And we're just authenticating that everything has been done and turned in and is proper. So yes, you're definitely going to need your moorishe ID. You're going to have to do the name change affidavit, proclamation, declaration. And then we have, I said moorishe application and it's affidavit. We're going to have an affidavit. You're definitely going to need a universal termination of all contracts and our universal commercial code, onlinne. Also, you're definitely going to have to do those sovereign moorishe American consular court commands because you're going to do it on all corporations that have any claims against the property that you are purchasing. You're going to need a declaration of trust, at least have that established. And you're going to need your sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine, United States Treasury check. Now, the last time that I did this was right before the Al-Moroccan Maxim exchange came into place. So there's definitely going to be more affidavits needed. But this was just some at the time that we knew that you needed to start, but you're definitely going to need a little bit more in order to give to the exchange. Okay, and then this is authentication. I'll fix this. The sovereign creditor authentication process, and which is the affidavits itself, mimics the corporate real estate contract side. This is normally where you have, of course, your real estate broker and agent, and where they will come into place. And on the corporate side, you would do a real estate contract. You need earnest money to put down. You have an appraisal, and if the lender required, you would need a survey or inspection done, and possibly an attorney if you needed one, and definitely some type of property insurance. For us, you're going to need to do our sovereign real estate transaction, you're going to need your original indigenous natural divine land, allodial title. That's supposed to be allodial title. Change that. Your sovereign, original, indigenous, natural divine United States Treasury check. And we're going to have our appraisal and survey and inspection the same way that they would eventually, that those will come into play real soon. And you definitely, we're all the law. So, you know, that still goes into the authentication process of just making sure that you have all your affidavits and it's done correctly just to close the transaction. And we're going to need our insurance, which is the indemnis facier. We're going to need our insurance on the property itself. And then you're going to need, also going to need other affidavits like the eminent domain affidavit and more. There's more affidavits that has came into place since doing this that is going to be needed. It's not on here now presently, but there are other affidavits that are going to be needed as well. So finish that up. Next, let's put this back up here. Okay.
Let me say this about the affidavits. As far as this process is concerned, I think we're complete on affidavits. We're thinking about those who are going to be leading these processes, leading the processes, not the people, because we don't lead people, we lead processes. Those who are leading these processes are going to have some other documents in place. So currency controller documents are for those who are going to be using the sovereign dollarium. The processes that you're doing, you have to have certain affidavits in place because you're ministering that. So whatever your ministry is, you will need affidavits for that ministry. But the people that are coming for the ministerial services, they don't necessarily need those those affidavits in place. So let's and I know that's something you and I and some of the other Moors has been talking about with regard to the processes that we're putting in place.
Oh, honey, I commanded you to lock this up. I got shit to do. Particularly for the banking piece and also for the real estate piece, there are certain documents that need to be in place for those who are going to be using for that being their ministry. So for right now, this is enough for right now.
Okay. Yeah. I was more thinking about the affidavit, the investment affidavit and everything. I don't know if everything I put in there had to do with what you're doing with making sure everybody had the inheritance package together in the exchange. I didn't know if all of the affidavits were in there, but if you do see all of them in there, then we're good to go. But I didn't know if I had put those, especially back then, because that was right before you put it in there. So if we're good to go, then we're good to go with what you guys have already seen. And then
you when they come to you, you will have several affidavits that you have for them to do. But the good thing about the Al-Moroccan American is that once those original affidavits come in, for the Al-Moroccan American Exchange, we have a list, and those who turned in those affidavits know what that list is of documents. Once those documents are turned into the Al-Moroccan American Exchange, any of the other companies that are on the Al-Moroccan Exchange that need those documents, all the Moors will have to do is say, hey, I already have those documents, here they are. And this is through, and at some point, very soon, the Al-Moroccan American Exchange will be able to say, okay, we have these documents. If you need us to send them to this company or that company, because those companies are on the Al-Moroccan American Exchange, you don't have to worry about them because you were competent to do the documents in the first place. And since you've done the documents, we can get them over to, we just need your consent to get the documents over to Empress today so that you can do the real estate process. Or if they're, doing domiciles or getting services from the sea salt company, those documents have to be in place for everything that we do because that's the only way that you can use more sovereign dollarium.
Right.
So I'll yield there. Sorry.
Okay, good. Okay, well, yeah, you're right. You're right. Now, I guess for this piece that I have in front of you guys today, the sovereign creditors authentication criteria for businesses, for the corporation. If you could see to the left, that was everything that they needed in order to get you, quote unquote, approved, which was, you know, they want to know the purpose of the loan, your business experience, business plan, credit history, their application, financial statement, collateral, the cash flow, outstanding loans, debts, and personal guarantees on whoever that was going to be the guarantor to guarantee the loan, to make sure that it was paid. For us, as far as right now, we may not need some of that information, but real soon, as me and Empress Light had stated, because we don't have any debts, the Moors don't have any debts, but soon when we're dealing with each other, we do have credits that are leaving in and out that we're going to definitely have to keep accounting of and so forth. So some of those documents that they had, we may have affidavits that's similar to the corporate, but in our sovereign capacity, our sovereign status. But for our side, we have our moorishe application that will state our purpose of the reason why we're doing. We need the authentication of whatever credits to move forth to close the transaction, and potentially, moorishe resume. I know we spoke about that previously before, that, it would be great to know, what the Moors do now, because you're definitely, will be needed in assistance to, build the nation and to do what we need to do in our sovereign status. So that would be great to have that, as well as to have a business plan. We need to have our business plan anyway, just to have structure and to make sure that everything is done properly. Even once you do the demonstration and you have all your affidavits in place and you gain access to the property, you're going to want to make sure that you're taking care of everything that you need for the property, just to make sure that everything is safe and sound. So it's good to have some type of plan and structure in place. And then you're still going to need your treasury check. That was the next one. And then, like I stated, you're going to definitely end up needing eventually, financial statements and different things of that nature of our own, as well as the last one was a moorishe declaration and proclamation, and making sure that you have all of those affidavits in, which Empress Light just expressed, you should have that in anyway, just going through the exchange, everything should be in, etc. So that should be taken care of, okay? So that's all the stuff that we spoke of previously. Now that's moving on to the next point, because we did come up with an affidavit that is going to be the creditor authentication affidavit that's similar to an application that you would do for a loan. And first, before I even go there, I'm going to pull up so you can just look at it side by side of the corporate. This would be the corporate application that most corporations use. I'm not going to completely go through everything. I just want you guys to take a look at how they stated the application. They did ask you for we don't have to worry about interest rates and stuff like that, because it's not a loan, we're credits. But they would ask you for the property address and the legal description, year built, and things that had to do with the property particularly. And then also they would say the purpose. They want to know, was it a purchase or refinance, whether you were doing construction or not, and what was the type of property. How were you going to hold title? Were you going to be owner occupied, which was primary residence, or was it going to be a secondary residence or investment property for you? And this section right here would deal more with construction budget, if you're going to be doing more stuff to the property to rehabilitate it. And then they will ask you for the name that the title would be held in, the manner that the title would be held in, and they have different ways, manners to hold the title, joint tenancy, single man, single woman, etc. Okay. And then fee simple, whether it was going to be an ownership style of title, or was it going to be more of a leasehold, like you have a 30-year, 50-year lease, and you need a loan for that. A lot of buildings would do that, like Class A buildings that you would see in any city. They may have, you know, a 100-year lease or something like that, in which would cost millions of dollars and so forth, just to have that 100-year lease, just to purchase that lease. And then, of course, everyone knows about the borrower's information. They will have all of that here in the co-borrower if necessary. And ask you about your monthly income and combined housing expenses, whether you have rental properties, hazard insurance, real estate taxes. Next section, assets and liabilities. We don't have any liabilities. We are going to upgrade our section to include ingoing and outgoing credits. Okay, so it'll look similar to this. Let me keep moving forward. Go past that section, okay? And then they will have the details of the transaction, so they want to know the purchase price, all alterations, improvements, and a lot of these have to do with different costs. You know, they want to know about your insurance and any other prepaid costs that you would incur, like appraisals or inspection fees and stuff. They would want to know all about those costs, and that would be on this side with the total of how much you would be needing to get from the lender in order to close your transaction. And then on this side, they ask many questions about judgments and debts and liens that may be on you, and or are you a U.S. citizen, and et cetera, et cetera. In the end, you will see just where you pretty much have to assign, give them the rights to be able to pretty much go through their approval process and do their verification process of all the stuff that you have stated in this document, okay? And this is pretty much going towards the end. Me and Light was just discussing this portion right here. They had the information for government monitoring purposes. Of course, they wanted to know your race and nationality and what sex you are and so forth, okay? And then right here, this would be where one of our scientists, but what they would have the mortgage specialist would come in and sign and said, okay, you know, you were pretty much their client, and so forth, okay? This is just an extra document right here for notes. Continuing on, if you had more debts or more assets or anything else that you would want to add, you would add that to the documents and so forth. Okay, so that's theirs. Now, we're going to move on to ours. Let's see. Okay. This is ours on government letterhead. Okay. Here's that autocorrect again. Okay, this is the Moorish American Maxim Land Bank, which is the company that is providing this affidavit. And then is the Universal Moorish National Information Affidavit for Sovereign Creditor Authentication. And with all of our affidavits, we're definitely going to need to have the all rise and stand. Even when dealing with each other, especially for right now, for all of our affidavits, more now than ever, because as we shouldn't have any problems, I don't believe at all, demonstrating and having any problems with policy enforcers and so forth. But if they ever was to see any of these affidavits when you're demonstrating and you have access and you're domiciling in one of those properties, if ever, you want to put everyone that possibly sees this in a court action. So you will want to have that on there. Okay. Now, the first section, we're going to have our Moorish National Information. We need your appellation, the domicile, information, phone, and email, same way that they had on the corporate, what we would call a 1003, but it's the corporate application. And your sovereign security number, born date. I put MAC number if applicable, tribe, and other Moorish appellations if you have them in other Moorish group identifying numbers. If you have them, if you're coming from any other Moorish nation in which that you would have some type of number identifying yourself with that group. The next section would be, we call it the previous unlawfully named information, which is pretty much, if you looked at the corporate application, it would be the part where you put all the information on the property. They generally want information on the property, okay? Where is it at? Right here at the top. They want subject, property, legal description, and all that. They will want that information. And that is, hold on one second. Okay, and this is our section. We want to know the old corporate address. And I'll put parcel identification number. Some people may know it as a PIN number, which is the number that was attached to the property in which the tax assessor would use and the recorder of deeds would use to identify the property, and the current corporate legal description that they may have.
Islam. If you go back to that other form.
Oh, the other one?
I want to point something out really quickly.
Okay.
The corporate form.
Mm-hmm.
This is why we do not fill out their forms. If you look up at the right up at the top, it says subject property address. All three of those words indicate that that is not anything sovereign or anything. So we don't fill out their forms. That's why we do everything by affidavit, because they have it built into their form to subordinate and subject and to put, and to make it property. And then as you look at this application right here that they have, that this is their corporate thing that we don't use with these black letters and all of that, capital letters, etc. They're saying throughout the document repeatedly that you're a slave and you don't own nothing. Okay? And that's why those documents are there, and that's why we don't use them. I just wanted to point that out, that they're saying on the document that whoever puts their information in there is a subject. You're still a subject. Even though they're saying that that's the property address, they're saying subject property address.
That's right. That's a good point. That was a good find. I'm glad you caught that. Because I didn't catch that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did.
Okay. No. Let me go back to here. Okay. So now we're moving on to, and then property details. Okay. You may see on the other, let me see, the other document that I had up, they would ask, was this your, primary residence, secondary residence, investment property? They want to know if this was going to be something that you were going to, live. They would say, are you going to live there? And is it a single family or multi-family? Well, we have, is it a single kin domicile, multi-kin domicile? Is it a commercial property? Is it land? Is it just vacant land, or is it industrial property? And if it is a single family, which is a single kin domicile for us, then this will come into play, or even for multifamily, this will come into play. Bedrooms and bath, garage, basement. We still want to have data on the property so we can put it into our system that we're going to have in place, because we're going to continue to keep marketing the properties to the heirs. Eventually, all that's going to be set up to continue to market the property to the heirs once you guys do the demonstrations and completely gain access to each property. You guys are going to be rehabbing and doing construction on them and getting them up to standards and safety and so forth, and putting improvements. So all that information is going to be necessary when passing properties to.
Hey guys, you're out. You still got your nose up.
Okay. So next, and then we also ask, will the property be for domicile purposes? Okay. We want to know if it's somewhere that you're going to domicile, or is it going to be more like investment and so forth. Okay. Next is the real estate transaction information, and we want to know the purchase price, the market value, construction costs, improvements, were there improvements already made, or are they going to be made, so forth, yes or no. And then instead of buyer and seller, we have grantor, appellation, and receiver, appellation, because we're going to want to know how the title is being transferred. We also have sovereign allodial title to be held in the appellation. At this part is where you would either put your born appellation or your chosen appellation, or your trust. Okay, and then we also want to know the manner in which title will be held. Is it going to be a joint sovereign trust or a single sovereign trust? And since this is a fact, this is not a yes or no. All of the real estate, the land, we have that the estate will be held by the people who are the government into perpetuity. Okay, so that's just a fact, because the estate belongs to the heirs, all the heirs that are the government. Okay, and then last, were you going to say something else, Mike?
I just wanted to add to that everything that we're doing is for everyone. It's not for any one of us in particular. All of the companies belong to everybody. All of the land belongs to everybody and everything. There are those of us who are leading the process of whatever it is, but it still belongs to everybody. Okay, and that's why we value one another's input on how it should be done, how things should be done. So if you've done any study on any of these processes that we put forth, and you want to let us know about that, what you came up with, please do so. With that, I yield.
Excellent, excellent. Yep. And then the last part of this section was the resource account in which the sovereign credits are to be held. A lot of times that would be bank information that is holding the funds. If you look at their application right here, they want to know the source of down payment, settlements, and they have subordinate financing, using words like that. Hold on one second. Let me go back. Which is, similar to what we would need to know on the account in which the credits are coming from to complete this transaction. Okay. Now moving on to commercial property information, which is equal to the Moroccan American Exchange information. You guys that should already have done this by this point. For business purposes, when looking at properties like commercial real estate and industrial real estate, stuff of that nature, maybe not for single family, but mainly for doing business. Okay, so we would want to have the name of the Amex business and the business type. We want to know, is it mechanics, like a mechanics business? Is it for a restaurant? I mean, that information is important. Then is the business type going to change? Is it going to be changed? That's important because you may get a property that may start off and used to be maybe a restaurant, and now you're turning it into something else, and you don't want to keep it in the capacity that it used to be in. You want to actually change that. So that would be useful information for us. And then the last one is sovereign credit amount that has been invested in the Amex exchange. Okay, this is only for, like, if you're choosing to be a part of one of these companies, the 200 plus companies, like farming and the real estate and so forth that you've invested in the Amex exchange, that information right here of how much you have invested would be useful, okay, to put that on this affidavit. And then we have the Moorish merchant information. This section would be if you already have a business and is being revenued as your Moorish business moving forward. You will want to have that, give the appellation to that business, the date that the business was established, and the years that the Moorish national has been doing business in this line of business, okay? You may have just recently started a business in 2021. However, you've been doing this type of business, you've been in the line of business for the past 10, 20 years. And that would be important because you're definitely going to be very useful to the nation moving forward. So all this information is definitely going to be for government purposes. And then, let me see, the business establishment current location. Okay, we will want to know that, of course, in the phone and email, any website information, etc. All right, moving forward, we have the details of the Moorish real estate transaction. This would be similar to, okay, let me come all the way down to right here. This section right here of their form, which, like I said, this was a standard form that has been used for many years, as long as I know, if you were doing any type of real estate financing through Chase and all of those other banks, especially for single family and even commercial properties. Many of them use this form. Okay, so that's their section. When we have our purchase price, we still want to know about the rehab and construction. We want to know about the appraisal, the inspection, and the real estate company's service credit for helping to complete this transaction, and also our insurance information, okay, for the property. We will want to know that, and then put the total of what's needed, because the total of what's needed is what you're going to need to make sure that you have your treasury check to cover all the credits of the total of everything that's needed to close the transaction. Okay. Now here's our Moorish declarations, and let me go back to the other form right here. Okay, they had declarations, of course, they deal with corporate, so all of this has to do with, you know, judgments and liens and liabilities and so forth that they wanted to know, and through the corporate side. For us, okay, we want to just make sure that you've completed all the affidavits, because the affidavits that should have been done through the exchange, through the Amex exchange, that should have been given to our company beforehand, all of that is pretty much a checklist of everything that you need just to complete the transaction, okay? So we want to know, did you do the name change, judicial proclamation, the sovereign trust? Did you do the universal commercial lien code 1 affidavit? Did you do the termination of contracts? Do you have the treasury check, and did you complete it? And then our allodial title, do you have that? Do you have our insurance, the sovereign insurance? Do you have you completed, especially if you're doing commercial property for business, and you're taking over one of the 200+ companies? Have you did the dividend investment affidavit? Also, all the rebuttals of the deeds and the mortgages, land patents, and etc. on the particular property that you're looking at. Have you taken care of those as well? And lastly, have you done liens in court actions on all corporate claims of ownerships, etc. So, Islam Empress?
The bank is, because you're doing the real estate piece, and it's going to be in conjunction with the banking piece. And so as far as indemnis facier and titles and treasury checks, land, those things, those three at least for sure. Titles, indemnis facier, and even the dividend investment affidavit, but for sure the treasury check and all of that, we're going to be providing that to the heirs. So essentially the main things that the heirs are going to need to have is going to be the first 5 documents. The first 5. And after that, we can whatever service it is that they need, that service will provide the rest of those documents for them, but they're going to have to fill them out and do the work.
Okay.
You know, so we will have treasury checks for the Moors to use, or they'll have their own Moorish sovereign to use. We'll have template land titles that they'll have to fill out so that they know how land titles are worded in the proper jurisdiction and all of that. So there's going to be help all along the way for the heirs. So heirs, don't let the complexity of the processes discourage you, because we're going to be here to help. That's all we do is we're going to be here to help with each part of that, and the majority of it will be handing it to you the same way we've been giving out the templates for everything else. So with that, I yield.
I'm glad you said that. I thank you for even bringing that up, because it may look complex, but most of this you should have taken care of already. And yes, you should have already the affidavits and the templates for most of the information already. So it is really is not going to be, it shouldn't be that hard of a process for you, unless you just have any questions that need to be answered about the affidavits themselves, or about any of the other affidavits and so forth that the MX Exchange is going to provide. That would be for you guys to, ask the MX Exchange and get that information from them, so you can have help just maybe completing. But for the most part, everything, as Empress Light stated, should be provided for you to use. So it's going to, we're trying to make this a smooth process and as easy as possible to get you to the closing table, And
come prepared to work.
Yes, yes.
Come prepared to work and to think, because, nothing is supposed to be handed to the sovereigns. We're supposed to get it and activate it and use it. Because, see, every process that we do, including this one, we're going to have to teach it to the heirs. So whenever more come, as you come to these processes, to do them to get your domiciles and your conveyances and things like that, come prepared to with the mindset that, okay, I'm going to learn everything I need to know about it so that I can teach it to someone else. Because we're going to have to all teach these processes to our heirs and their heirs and so on and so forth. So come with the mind to teach the process, not just use it.
Right. That's right. Okay. Islam. Okay, so this section right here is similar to the end of this entire long and drawn out application that they had, where they needed you to move up some. Right here, where they just wanted you to do the agreement so they can verify all your information, basically, that you gave them, okay? Hold on one second. Let me pull ours back up. So we have the sovereign creditor, authenticate. Okay, then we put that twice. We'll move one of them. Authentication, in which you would state, that I give authorization for the Al-Moroccan American Exchange and its sovereign companies to include the Moorish American Amexem Land Bank to share information for this and future exchanges and review to seal authentication. Okay, and then you will put your sovereign born autograph right here, and the date, and your sovereign security number right here to to give us authentication. Would you like to say something?
Yes. So this platform that we set up, and when I say we, all Moors, we're all doing this all at once because all of the companies and the whole estate and everything belongs to all of us. In this statement here, it says, I give authorization for the Al-Moroccan American Exchange and its sovereign companies to include the Moorish American Amex and Land Bank to share information for this and future exchanges. What we're doing, and I mentioned this, I touched on it briefly earlier, but the documents that you give, those first 5 documents in red and all lowercase letters, when those documents are given to the Al-Moroccan American Exchange, there are 220-something companies right now, to include the Moorish American Amex and Land Bank, that are a part of this exchange. And the Moors have stepped up to claim those companies, and they continue to step up and claim them. So if you haven't gotten your Al-Moroccan American Exchange inheritance packet, please do so and get it back in. Because when you send those documents in, then any of the other companies that are in there that you want services from, you won't have to keep submitting and submitting and sending and submitting and digging it up and digging up this record and that record and this and that. We're going to have them so that we'll be able to share them back and forth with one another, okay? And that's why those who are the sovereign, the chief executive heirs that we're going to be meeting with over the next few weeks who stepped up to claim the company, we're all going to have access to one another's information so that when the Moors come and need services, those 5 documents that we've placed on the public record already will be available, okay? Now, we're not putting anything out there that's not already on the public record. So it's not even a matter of that as much as it is making it easier for the heirs so that they don't have to keep going through the same thing over and over and over. But that we have a system here, because if you look at that hybrid system, all you needed to give them was a social that we thought was ours. And they could pull up everything they needed to pull up. They didn't even need, half the time they didn't even need signature. They got to the point where they didn't even need a signature, because we had agreed by giving them that number and calling it a social security number that we were already signing. They just needed consent. So with this system, the sovereign system that we're putting in place, we're trying to make it as easy as possible for the heirs to come. Right now we're in the foundational portions of the system, but we want to make it as easy as possible. So it does look like a lot of affidavits, but once those affidavits are in, and then the companies that are here, you start wanting services from those companies as well as you being chief executive heirs of those companies, it'll be easier for the information to flow back and forth, okay? We want to make it easy so that we know for sure that we're not dealing with a citizen, we're dealing with the heirs. We're not dealing with a subject, we're dealing with the heirs, and those documents have been validated. And again, validated by you, not by us, because we're not a validating authority. All Moors are their own validating authority. But when you send those documents in red and all lowercase letters, that's saying, I know that I'm really the heir and I'm not a part of the capitalist system. And with that, I yield.
Islam. Okay. Let me see. So we'll, hold on one second. There it is. Okay, so we're moving on to the last page, and this is just where, as you can very well see, that you would just put your autograph, and you hereby claim and proclaim, fully access and declare your full right and lawful estate of all the land and all natural resources, and so forth, the physical property, commercial property, non-pro tem. You're going to do it proclaim in all red, lowercase letters, proprio persona sutures, and proprio solo, and proprio heredis at this time in all points in time. And then lastly, upon your inherited status, that your born appellation, and you can put your free chosen appellation, because like the prophet stated that we would be needing both our born appellation to do old business as well as we transition into doing our new business. But we also, would like to know your chosen appellation to do the new business, because this process that we're describing today is the new business. This process is how we're going to not only transition out and revenue from corporate to our sovereign status, but to do business with each other. So your free chosen national appellation will be needed, and you will put your affirmations and stand by of course, the 5 principles love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, etc. Okay, and you're going to affirm that everything you stated was to be true and correct. And then this is where your born appellation, and we want your chosen appellation here. And then lastly, of course, your domicile or your care of address, and which would be where you're getting mail, your mailing address. And that is the end of this document. Now, it's the end of this document that was...
Got your nose up Pauline's ass? Everybody got their nose up Pauline's ass?
Authorization process. It's the end of the sovereign creditor authentication process, which would be the loan approval process. However, I don't even know if we have a lot of time. I'm looking at the time today. I only have like a few more. Do you think I have probably about a few more little slides to show leading into the real estate transaction? Because next I'm going to have for you guys our contract. That will be coming up next. If you want me to get into the slides today, let me know, because I know it's looking like we have 15 minutes left, and I'll do these next 3 slides. I can't hear a thing if she's saying anything.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I was thinking, why don't we break it up and do the other when you have the contract, so that we can look at it all at once?
Okay. Yeah, that would be great.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I'm starting on that. I'm starting on that now. Hopefully, I should have it really soon. I'll tell you, if it's going to be either next Thursday or next Sunday, because I've already started. I told you I'm going to be sending it to you soon. But with that, then
Let's make it next Sunday.
Oh, okay.
Let's make it next Sunday.
Okay.
That way, we'll be able to get together and all of that.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Empress.
Oh, no problem. No problem at all.
Can we just give a quick Islam for Empress today and her hard work? Because that's
Islam.
Thank you, Ayers. We got to get it together for our nation. I'm doing it for you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Empress.
Thank you for your work.
No problem at all. We're going to get this together. We're going to get it together. That's for sure. Islam.
Got it. Islam.
Yes. We got this. We're unstoppable. We got this. So we have about a little less than 15 minutes. I wanted to say that first, are there any questions about what the Empress presented today? Yes, in the chat.
Islam?
Yes, Islam, Empress.
Yes. I just wanted to thank you both for all your hard work in setting up the foundation for us. And we have spent all these years, they're chopping T's, and those, and that whole process. This is like nothing. And Empress Sade, you're correct. Most of this stuff is done, at least for myself. I got to have it converted to, capitis, diminutio, nolo. But most of this work is already done. So I want to thank you both. And I, like you mentioned earlier, you were afraid of how we were going to react to this. But we've been through this stuff so much. This looks a lot lighter and a lot easier. And I'm looking forward to the work.
Yeah. Thank you, Empress. Thank you, Empress. Because that's what Light was talking about. We did want to keep this simple as possible, and take out all of those extra documents that they have to make it easier, because we don't need them. We don't need them. And yes, you all have been through this before, so we're just changing it. Is there anything you want to say, Empress Light? I yield.
Well, thank you so much, Empress. I wanted to say, Justice Dearmore brought something out in the chat. He said that that corporate document that was shown earlier is filled with loopholes and back doors. And that's the stuff that we're shoring up and making sure that, first of all, trash that thing, all things corporate and capitalized, with black ink, we put that aside. And now it's our turn to properly proclaim that which is rightfully ours. This process had to be put in place. It had to, by the heirs, and no one else could do that for us. And this is going to assist in so many ways in terms of Moors don't ever have to be on the street anymore. Even if, no matter what, we don't have to be on the street. We love our roads and our land and all of that, but we don't want to live out there. We want to live in domiciles. So this process and the processes that are being put with it, and the Al-Moroccan American Exchange is all us removing the corporate covering off that system and using what's rightfully ours. But we have to prove we're competent. And I would have to say today that I have no worries about whether we're competent to do this, to govern this vast estate. I know we are. I know we are. And that goes for all of them. So if for next time we're on Wednesday, we will have our call at 12 noon Eastern on this same platform. And then Thursday at 7, we will have our call on this same platform. Yes, in the chat. The corporate forms, they're so complicated because they're so colored and black. And how you can be colored and black at the same time, only the corporation can manage to do that, But with that being said, we never have to fill out their corporate forms, and if we have to go through every form out there to get our vast estate competently, we're willing to do it, all of us. We're all willing to do it. And I will also say that we have other nations that are using the information that we're putting out, and they're doing their own study. And we're just excited to be unified in that manner with the other nations that are out there. And we're learning from them also. So it's not just a one-way street. And the same thing goes for these processes. So with that being said, if there's nothing further at this time, we will meet again on Wednesday, and then Empress Sade will finish this part of her demonstration on next week on Sunday. I'm glad that the Empresses and everyone is willing to do the work. That's what I'm happy about, because we deserve our vast estate, but we only, we need it in a way that it will never be taken again, ever be taken. And it was never taken, we just needed it. I apologize. I got booted off. I guess that means it's time to close anyway. So with that being said, if there is nothing further, peace and grand rising to the sovereign original.
Grand failure.
Natural divine heirs. Islam.
Oh, peace and love.
Grand rising.
Grand rising.
Peace and love.
Much love. Much love.
Grand rising. Much love.
Grand rising. Peace and love. Take some more.